Let us see about error resilient video coding. If you look at that, the compressed video is highly vulnerable to errors. The goal of error resilient video coding is to design the video compression algorithm and the compressed bit stream, both, right? The algorithm and the compressed bit stream. So we have to design that so that it is resilient to the specific types of errors. So now we are going to see the overview of error resilient video compression. It begins by identifying the basic problems introduced by errors and then discusses the approaches developed to overcome these problems. In addition, we focus on the problems which are more relevant for video streaming and also the approaches to overcome these problems that are most successful. Okay. So the first point here, what we are going to see is the basic problems introduced by errors. There are two actually. One is a loss of bitstream synchronization. Another problem is incorrect state and error propagation, which we will see that little briefly in next slide. Then after that we will see about overcoming the loss of bitstream synchronization. So this is done by 4 different methods. The first one is resync markers. The second one is reversible variable length codecs or VLCs. And third one is data partitioning, and the fourth one is application aware packetization. So that's called application level framing. So we'll see that. And in the next slide we will see about overcoming the incorrect state and error propagation. So there we will see about point-to-point communication with the back channel. The first one is basic problems introduced by errors. Most video compression systems possess a similar architecture based on motion compensated prediction between frames. It's called MC. And block DCT. That DCT is discrete cosine transform or other spatial transform of the prediction error, and it is followed by entropy coding. The entropy coding may be run length coding or Huffman coding of the parameters. The two basic error induced problems that afflict a system based on this architecture are the first one is the loss of bitstream synchronization. The second one is incorrect state and error propagation. The first class of problems, that is loss of bitstream synchronization, refers to the case when an error can cause the decoder to become more confused and it lost the synchronization with the bitstream. That is, the decoder may lose track of what bits corresponds to what parameters. There will be a Gibblery effect in the decoder actually. Like that sound will come, and videos will get stuck and you cannot see any video. The second class of problems, that is incorrect state and error propagation, that refers to what happens when a loss afflicts to a system that uses a predictive coding. The second one is overcoming the loss of bitstream synchronization. How to overcome the bitstream synchronization? See, loss of bitstream synchronization corresponds to the case when an error causes the decoder to lose track of what bits corresponds to what parameters, right? For example, consider what happens when a bit error afflicts a Huffman code word or other variable length code word, VLC. Not only would the code word be incorrectly decoded by the decoder, but because of the variable length nature of the code words, it is highly probably that the code word would be incorrectly decoded to the code word of a different length, and thereby all the subsequent bits in the bit stream until the next rsync will be misinterpreted. Even a single bit error can lead to a significant subsequent loss of information. It is very much interesting to note that Fixed length codes, that is FLC, we'll say FLC, fixed length codes, do not have this problem since the beginning and ending locations of each code word are known, and therefore losses are limited to a single code word. However, fixed length codes do not provide any good compression, but variable length codes provide significantly better compression, and it is widely used. The key to overcoming the problem of loss of bitstream synchronization is to provide mechanism that enables the decoder to quickly isolate the problem and resynchronization to the bitstream after an error has occurred. We now consider different number of mechanisms that enable the bitstream resynchronization. The first one is the resync markers. Resync markers. This is possibly the simplest approach actually to enable the bitstream synchronization is by use of resynchronization markers. It's commonly referred to as resync markers. The basic idea is to place a unique and easy to find entry points in the bitstream so that if the decoder loses sync, it can look for the next entry point and then begin in decoding again after the entry point. Resync markers corresponds to a bitstream pattern that the decoder can unmistakably find, right? Easily it has to identify a bit pattern. These markers are designed to be distinct from all the code words, the concatenation of code words, and minor perturbation of concatenated code words. An example of an rsync or resync marker is a 3-byte sequence consisting of 23 zeros followed by a 1. 23 zeros followed by only 1. So 24 bit. It's a 3-byte. Sufficient information is typically included after each resync marker to enable the start of the bitstream decoding. An important question is where to place a resync marker. One approach is to place the resync marker at a strategic locations in the compressed video hierarchy. So for example, picture or slicer headers. This approach is used in MPEG 1, MPEG 2, 261, 262, 263, 264, everywhere. Till latest technology, we are using these kind of resync markers. This approach results in resyncs being placed at every fixed number of blocks, which corresponds to a variable number of bits. An undesired consequence of this is that active areas which require more bits would in many cases have a higher probability of being corrupted. To overcome this problem, MPEG 4 provides the capability to place the resync markers periodically after every fixed number of bits, or we can say variable number of coding blocks. This approach provides a number of benefits, including reduces the probability that active areas be corrupted, and simplifies the search for a resync marker, and supports the application-aware packetization. It's a first point. Next point is a reversible variable length codec, RVLC. See, conventional VLCs, you take a Huffman code. The conventional VLCs are uniquely decodable in the forward direction, but RVLCs in addition have the property that they are also uniquely decodable in the backward direction. So this property can be quite beneficial in recovering data that would otherwise be lost, right? For example, if an error is detected in the bit stream, the decoder would typically jump to the next resync marker. Now, if the RVLCs are used, instead of discarding all the data between the error and the resync, the decoder can start decoding backwards from the resync until it identifies another error, right? So, and thereby this enables the partial recovery of the data, which would otherwise be discarded, right? Nevertheless, RVLC are typically less efficient than VLC. The next point is data partitioning. See, an important observation is that bits which closely follow a resync marker are most likely to be accurately decoded than those further away. This motivates the idea of placing the most important information immediately after each resync. So for example, motion vector, DC, DCT coefficients and shape information for MPEG-4, and placing the less important information about later. The less important information are AC, DCT coefficients. So this approach is referred to as data partitioning in MPEG-4. It's not only used in MPEG-4, it is used in 264 also. H.264, 265. So note that this approach is in contrast with the conventional approach which is used in MPEG-1, MPEG-2 or 261 and 263, where the data is ordered in the bit stream in a consecutive macro block by macro block manner and without accounting for importance of different types of data. So to summarize, the basic idea is to overcome the problem of loss of bit stream synchronization is to first isolate the corrupted information and second, enable a fast resynchronization. Next point is application aware packetization. Application aware packetization. That is called application level framing, ALF. So for many applications involve communication over a packet network, such as internet, right? And in these cases, the losses have an important structure that can be exploited. Specifically, either a packet is accurately received in its entirety or it is completely lost, right? This means that the boundaries for lost information are exactly determined by the packet boundaries. This motivates the idea that to combat the packet loss, one should design the frame the packet payload to minimize the effect of loss. This idea was crystallized in the application level framing, ALF, right? Presented in different algorithm, different standard. So basically it says that the application knows the best kind of thing, how to handle the packet loss, how to handle the out of order delivery and delay, and therefore the application should design the packet payloads and relating processing. I'll give you an example. For example, if the video encoder knows the packet size of the network, it can design the packet payloads so that each packet is independently decodable. That is, bitstream resynchronization is supported at the packet level so that each correctly received packet can be straightforwardly parsed and decoded. MPEG-4, H.263 version 2 and H.264 and MPEG-4 AVC, all these support the creation of different forms of independently decodable video packets. As a result, the careful usage of the application level framing principle can often overcome the bitstream synchronization problem. So therefore, the major obstacle for reliable video streaming over lossy packet networks such as internet is a error propagation problem. That will be discussed in a next session. The next slide. How to overcome the incorrect state and error propagation. See how we are going to overcome. If a loss has occurred, and even if the bitstream has been resynchronized, another crucial problem is that the state of the representation at the decoder may be different from state at the encoder. In particular, when using motion compensation prediction, an error causes the reconstructed frame at the decoder to be incorrect. The decoder state is then different from the encoders, leading to incorrect predictions and often significant error propagation that can afflict many subsequent frames. Look at the figure. So we refer to this problem as having incorrect state at the decoder. And because the state of the representation at the decoder is not same as the state of the encoder. This problem also arises in many contexts, in other contexts, like random access for DVDs or channel acquisition for digital TV, where a decoder attempts to decode beginning at the arbitrary position in the bit stream. A number of approaches have been developed over the years to overcome this problem, where these approaches have the common goal of trying to limit the effect of error propagation. The simplest approach is to overcome this problem is by using an iframe only. Clearly by not using any temporal or p-frame, temporal prediction. And this approach avoids the error propagation problem. However, it also provides very poor compression and therefore it is generally not an appropriate streaming solution. Another approach is to use periodic iframe. That's called the MPEG GOP, group of pictures. For example, with the 15 frame GOP, there is an iframe for every 15 frames. And this periodic reinitialization of the prediction loop limits error propagation to a maximum of 1 GOP, 15 frames in this example. Suppose if I miss one frame in 15 frames, the next 15, I'll have to wait till the end of that particular GOP, and then immediately next GOP, the beginning will be iframe, so I can start. So this approach is used in DVDs to provide random access and digital TV to provide rapid channel acquisition. However, the use of periodic iframes limits the compression, and therefore this approach is often inappropriate for very low bitrate videos. For example, video over wireless channels or over the internet. The most sophisticated methods of intra-coding often apply partial intra-coding of each frame, where individual macro blocks are intra-coded as opposed to entire frames. The simplest approach of this form is periodic intra-coding of all macro blocks. The 1 by n of a MBs in each frame are intra-coded in a predefined order, and after n frames all the MBs have been intra-coded, and after n which the remaining are intra-coded. A more effective method is preemptive intra-coded. The more effective method is preemptive intra-coding, where one optimizes the inter mode decision for each macro block based on the macro block's content and channel loss model and the macro block's estimated vulnerability to losses. The use of intra-block to reduce the error propagation problem has a number of advantages and disadvantages. The advantages include, the first point is intra-coding does successfully limit error propagation by reinitializing the prediction loop. The second point is the sophistication is at the encoder while the decoder is quite simple. The third point is the inter mode decisions are outside the scope of the standard, and a sophisticated algorithm may be incorporated in a standard compatible manner. Okay. However, the intra-coding also has some disadvantages. The first one is it requires significantly higher bitrate than intercoding, leading to a sizable compression penalty. The second one is optimal intra usage depends on accurate knowledge of channel characteristics. While intra-coding limits error propagation, the high bitrate it requires limits its use in many applications. You take point-to-point communication with the back channel. The special case of point-to-point transmission with the back channel and with the real-time encoding facilities, additional approaches for overcoming the error propagation problems. So for example, when a loss occurs, the decoder can notify the encoder of the loss and tell the encoder to reinitialize the prediction loop by coding the next frame as an iframe. While this approach uses iframes to overcome error propagation, the key is that iframes are only used when necessary. Furthermore, this approach can be extended to provide improved compression efficiency by using p-frames as opposed to iframes to overcome the error propagation. The basic idea is that both the encoder and decoder store multiple previously coded frames. When loss occurs, The decoder notifies the encoder which frames were correctly or erroneously received, and therefore which frame should be used as a reference for the next prediction. These capabilities are provided by the reference picture selection in 263 and 264 MPEG-4. So to summarize, for point-to-point communication with the real-time encoding and a reliable back channel with a sufficiently short round-trip time, feedback-based approaches provide a very powerful approach for overcoming the channel losses. However, the effectiveness of this approach decreases as the RTT increases. The return round-trip return time increases. It is measured in terms of frame intervals, and the visual degradation can be quite significant for large RTTs.